My brother, Andy, always took Kathy's side. From the start, I had felt something off about her, but my brother's devotion to her made it hard to speak up. He never saw the things she said, the cruel, cutting remarks that would slip out when he wasn't looking. Yet I never mentioned it. After all, family is family, and it wasn't my place to interfere in his marriage. However, when my father passed away, everything changed. Suddenly, Kathy wasn't just my brother's wife. She became an adversary, a person whose intentions seemed less about grieving and more about claiming what she thought was hers. Kathy's behavior at the funeral was shocking. It wasn't the mourning that stood out, but her clear focus on my father's estate. As the relatives gathered and shared drinks, Kathy's words broke through the soft chatter. "The inheritance is mine," she said, her voice cold and demanding. Her focus was entirely on the money, the $3 million inheritance and the apartment that my father had left behind. I stood frozen, unsure of how to respond. Her words hung in the air like a poison, making the grieving atmosphere feel more like a business transaction than a memorial for my father. My father had always been the pillar of the family. His decisions were measured and wise. The company he built from the ground up was his pride, and he made sure I was trained to take over. Over the years, I had earned his trust, managing his business side by side. My brother, on the other hand, never showed an interest in the family company. He was always more focused on traveling and spending money. I respected my father's wishes and carried his legacy with honor. But Kathy, coming into the picture, didn't seem to understand that my father had already planned everything. The funeral preparations were grueling. While most of our family was somber, my brother seemed distant. It was as if he didn't quite grasp what had just happened. Kathy, however, wasn't distant. She was audibly complaining about everything, even the arrangements for the memorial. "This isn't the way I imagined things," she muttered under her breath, but loud enough for me to hear. It was frustrating. Here I was, trying to honor my father's memory, and she was worried about trivial details. She didn't seem to care that my father had just passed. She was already calculating what she could get. When Kathy suddenly brought up the inheritance, I could feel my blood boil. "My husband is the eldest son, and the $3 million in the apartment are ours," she stated confidently, as though there was no question about it. I was stunned. My father had made arrangements long before Andy ever married Kathy. It wasn't her place to demand anything. I glanced at my aunt, who looked equally confused. How could Kathy even know about the bank book or the apartment? My father had always been secretive about his financials, keeping things locked away for a reason. Something wasn't adding up. My aunt was the first to speak. "Is she joking?" she whispered, unsure of how to react. Kathy, noticing the confused looks, continued, "I checked the bank book the other day." That was impossible. The bank book Kathy was referring to had been locked away in a safe for years. There was no way she had seen it, let alone accessed it. I stared at her, trying to figure out what her game was. Why would she lie so blatantly? As she continued talking about the inheritance, I couldn't hold back any longer. I had to tell her the truth. There was no inheritance for her or Andy. "There is no inheritance left for Andy," I told her firmly. Her face twisted with anger and she snapped, "What do you mean there's nothing? Are you trying to trick me?" I could see her frustration growing. Kathy couldn't accept the reality. I explained as calmly as I could that everything had already been decided years ago. The company was mine, a decision made between my father and me long before she came into the picture. The apartment, too, was never meant for my brother. It had been a gift from my father to my aunt. Kathy, though, wasn't convinced. She just wouldn't listen. Kathy's face went pale and she stumbled for words. "But the apartment—" She trailed off, unable to grasp the full extent of what I was saying. It was clear she had no understanding of how everything had been arranged. My brother, still sitting quietly, finally seemed to recall something. "Oh, I remember now," he said absent-mindedly. "Dad did give me a lot of money. A lifetime gift, maybe." He was referring to the money Dad had given him years ago, which he had spent without a second thought. The money was gone, just like everything else. He had nothing left. Kathy was now clearly lost. "That money was a lifetime gift, and you spent it all," I reminded my brother. I could feel my patience thinning. My brother had lived recklessly, spending his gift on lavish trips and expensive tastes. Kathy had never been informed of the arrangement, and now she was throwing a tantrum, demanding money that never existed. "The apartment is in Andy's name," Kathy pressed on, but I shook my head. "It's not his anymore. It belongs to my aunt now." Kathy couldn't accept that reality. She had already envisioned herself living in luxury, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind as she tried to piece it all together. "But the bank book, the $3 million, Kathy insisted, her voice rising in disbelief. "It's an old bank book," I explained. "One that's no longer in use. It's from the company's old accounts." Kathy's eyes narrowed. "Then how did I see it?" she demanded, as if I was the one lying. The truth was simple. She had no idea what she was talking about. The money was long gone. My father had given my brother everything he would ever need, and Andy had squandered it all. There was nothing left for him, or for Kathy. But she couldn't accept it. She was too fixated on her fantasies. Kathy's frustration boiled over. "So, what do you want me to do?" she snapped. "Just accept that there's nothing left for me?" I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. "Yes," I said firmly. "There's nothing left. My father's will was clear, and everything was settled legally before you even entered the family. The company is mine now, and the apartment belongs to my aunt. There's nothing for you or Andy to take." My words hung heavy in the air. Kathy's eyes flashed with fury, and I could see the storm building inside her. This wasn't over. She wasn't going to back down easily. And I was right. Kathy suddenly knocked over a vase that had belonged to our mother. The sound of glass shattering echoed through the room, followed by her screams of frustration. "You money grubber!" she yelled, knocking over more things in her rage. I stood still, shocked by her outburst. The atmosphere shifted instantly, turning from mourning to chaos. The relatives gathered in the room stared at Kathy in disbelief. I couldn't believe she was behaving like this in front of family. It wasn't just about the inheritance anymore. This was a display of pure greed, and it was horrifying. My aunt stood up, furious, her voice trembling with anger. "Kathy, you have no right to act this way. You've lived a life of extravagance, and now you expect more?" she scolded. "Sarah has worked hard, and she's earned everything she has. Your financial troubles are your own fault. You've squandered everything, and now you expect others to bail you out?" The room was silent as my aunt's words rang out. Kathy was defeated for a moment, her face red with humiliation. But she wasn't finished yet. "I'll sue you!" she screamed. It was like a child throwing a tantrum, but I wasn't backing down. "You have no grounds to sue," I told her, trying to keep my voice calm. "You're not entitled to anything here." Kathy's face twisted with anger. "You think you can take everything from me? You think you can just throw me out of this family?" she shrieked. But there was nothing left for her to take. Her threats were meaningless. "I'll have to send you a bill for the vase and glasses you destroyed," I added coldly. Kathy didn't respond. Instead, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the house, dragging Andy behind her. The room was quiet, but the tension remained. It wasn't over. The next few months were filled with unexpected changes. My brother, who had always been indecisive, finally took action. He filed for divorce. Kathy, the woman who had once been so sure of herself, was now unraveling. She couldn't handle being without the money she had once believed was rightfully hers. My brother seemed shaken, his face pale as he told me how much he regretted marrying her. "What if I had stayed with her?" he asked. "I wouldn't have anything left. I would have lost everything." It was a sobering realization for him, but one that came too late. As the divorce proceedings began, we learned something that shook us all. Kathy had a criminal record for marriage fraud. It was a revelation that stunned both me and my brother. Kathy had entered our family under false pretenses, and her obsession with money had blinded her to everything else. The divorce was quick, and soon Kathy was out of our lives. It was a strange relief, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. My brother had made poor choices, and I feared for his future. But at least, with Kathy gone, we could rebuild and focus on protecting our father's legacy.